All right. Attention, attention. Yes, this is a video for clout. Attention, attention. Yes, this is a video for clout. If you wish to turn around and not watch this video, you may just go ahead and stop right now. Okay, goodbye. All right. So with that little content warning out of the way, let's go ahead and get into this. So apparently Vaush, of course, always puts his foot in his mouth and is like, yeah, drone strikes, and talking about the strike on the Al Qaeda leader, Zawahiri. And the thing is this, man, is some people say he died 2 years ago of like asthma related illness. Some say, oh my gosh, he's been killed now. So to me, it's ridiculous where it's like, okay, you think that he's the only one? You think that he didn't train people? Or you think that it's like, come on, man. I mean, if you really think that a fucking drone strike is going to make a difference, it's like eventually, I remember one of the first times I actually started watching Vaush is that he, eventually the technology will come out where drones can be taken down. And you can even trace where those drones are being, flown. And so you can find those places, you know, until drone, when you find those drone pilots, that's it. But I don't really give a fuck about the whole drones argument because it's like, yeah, it's that way now, but once things fall apart in the United States and drones become more of a reality, the thing is this is that drones can be taken down. The F-117 was taken down, a supposed stealth aircraft. It wouldn't be that hard for a fucking drone. Most of them are like propeller driven anyway. So it's like, come on, man. People will find a way to bring down drones. I'll tell you that right now. People are cagey. People are, resourceful. So I don't really give a fuck about that. But what I'm worried about is the narrative that Vaush is pushing, like, oh, Soleimani's evil and Iran is pushing this sort of thing and Russia bad. And it's like, he's always been this way, but I think he's just completely gone mask off, where he's just like, yeah, I don't like the United States. The United States is a racist country, but this and that. But, we had to defeat China and all this sort of thing. And we see that he, like I say, and I've seen, I said I'd never use his name, but I'll go ahead and use it here. But we've seen Superpower Broadcasting, be like based Vaush and everything else like that. So it's like, if you have guys like that on your side, shit is bad. But more to the point, I mean, we see Vaush ultimately, I think he's so anemic and so turned off by tankies and that sort of thing. He's so turned off by it that he has become more of a neocon. He's become more of like a, ultimately, yeah, the system's bad. And, he's even done, of course, that, the story that recently came out that Democrats are getting support for a Republican candidate. And it's like, well, that's happening, but it's like, you guys still need to knock on those doors and all this sort of thing. So he still plays the game. It goes to show that he really, those tanky arguments that he had really fucked him up. And I think, like I say, he was always like this. It's like, even back, I'm sure, when he was Irish laddie. Of course, ironically, now we find out that he's Polish. It makes more sense now. Of course, he doesn't really talk that much about Poland, this and that, because ultimately he is an atheist. He is that sort of guy. Once again, very much a neocon thing. Very much, yeah, like I say, some neocons were, probably evangelical or something like that, but most of them are atheistic type folks who, they love capitalism. They don't like, Islam. They don't like Christianity even. Ultimately, they manipulate Christianity to their beliefs, or they'll use, the insults against Jesus Christ and all this sort of thing, that, and use his name in vain. This isn't surprising, but I think that we see that, yeah, Vaush is bringing this back with the whole sort of, let's putting the NATO symbol, on the ANCOM flag and this and that. It's like, okay, this is the cringe shit that we have. And of course, Vaush retweeting stuff from, the Azov Battalion's Twitter account. And ultimately, he's like, well, Azov bad, this and that, but, they're defending their country, they're defending their sovereignty. Shut the fuck up. Where did you niggas come from? That's what I want to. I want to see where this goes. I honestly do. I want to see where this goes when. But it goes to show just how ridiculous it is. It's like most Americans don't know the actual narrative between Ukraine and Russia. It's just like, bruh, it's a very complicated thing. And like I say, I'm going to put it to you this way, is you see just how fragile the system is that there was a time when these events occurred all the time, this sort of warfare. But we see just how fragile this system is because it relies on everybody playing the same game because of it. And we see just how bad things have gotten because of it. Now, we're all part of this system. I don't necessarily say and be an acceleration. It's like, yeah, we want to see everything fall. But we see just how fragile it is. And it wasn't as fragile as it was before because ultimately there was some independence and some sort of autarky that did exist where we produced our own stuff. Ultimately now the United States is trying to back up and trying to, at least make some concessions to the ideas of the free market and the idea of globalization. No, not globalism. We're not going to use the Alex Jones phrase, globalization. And we see that people have definitely taken their steps back. And of course, this includes the China-Taiwan situation. Feel as you want to about that. I'm going to choose to keep my distance from that one in particular. But we see, of course, basically, what the fuck was I getting at? My point is this. Microchips. We're trying to create microchips again. And we're trying to, create the wafers and whatnot that TSMC does in Taiwan. And to me, it's too little too late. We shipped those things off decades ago. Those plants were shut down because they just couldn't keep up. There were places like that in the United States. I think there's only one that exists. So now, this is all just kind of, it's neither here nor there. People will continue to praise Biden. People will continue to say, oh my gosh, he's done so many great things or whatnot. It's like, yeah. Has he? I don't know. But that's my view of it. Ultimately, I don't really care either way with whichever party. It doesn't matter to me. But my point is that you see people like Vaush, of course, who have taken up this feeling, and ultimately they have become the neoconservatives. They have become the jingoists that they claim not to be. As much as they dislike, certain things and give a leftist face towards things. These are neocons. These are folks who will say, oh, just get over racism. Just get over it and whatnot. And that's ultimately what a lib would say nowadays, to a certain point. They would say, oh, it's awful what POC, what's happened to POC and whatnot. But those N-words got to get in line, When we see that if they step out of line, you see, when we see, I'm trying to think, when we see Justice Clarence Thomas step out of line and vote for overturning Roe v. Wade, we saw all these libs saying the N-word. Does this N-word know what he's doing? And every lib is, the liberal is a true racist. But anyway, my point is this, is that we see the shifting changes and whatnot, and we see more so-called lefties support this current system because it gives them the best chance to survive. And that's really the truth of it. As much as, MLs will talk about they want an independent organization, no, they're just going to die a death, and they're going to join whatever other group and blend into that group. I don't really think that their whole Marxist-Leninist beliefs are going to survive. Not in the same way. That's not to say it'll disappear. Of course not. It'll still exist in some form. But I think that groups like PSL or groups like CB, or CPUSA and whatnot, these groups, it's all made up of old folks, generally speaking. But anyway, what I would say is we see the narrative. And we see people hanging on for dear life for this system because they know that once it goes, then they will be, then Christofascism, aka what life used to be 100 to 200 years ago. That's really what it is. And I don't even say that as a bad thing. I just say it as that's just the way it was. That's how most societies were. They wanted you to keep working. They wanted you to, there wasn't massive change. That's the whole thing. But the 19th and 20th centuries, there were massive changes. Absolutely. In terms of technology and everything else like that. But generally speaking, people held on for as long as they could for those safety nets. Safety nets which are pretty much gone today. When you lose your job, you lose your job. There's no, there's no pension. There's no safety funds there. There's no looking for another job. You have to spend hours and hours on Indeed or going to some, 2-bit employees, employment service like Express Employment to find a job. There was a time when people, and this is me being an old man and wishing it was like this still, good, bad, right, or wrong, but there was a time when if your father was a plumber, God damn it, you were a plumber too. You started at 5 years old, learned to be a plumber. That's what happened. That's how it was. Or if your dad was an auto mechanic, dadgum, you were an auto mechanic. You started at the age of 5. As soon as you could walk, be like, hey, you're going to come help me in the shop today. Come on, let's go. And that's just how it was. That still exists in some form, but nowhere near the way it was. Part of that is due to globalization. Part of that is due to a free market. And part of that is just due to the fickleness of society, where we say to ourselves, we don't want that. We don't want that sort of labor anymore. We don't want that. Now you can be an insurance agent, or now you can do that. And then, of course, those jobs get eliminated for whatever reason, and et cetera, et cetera. I prefer the old way, where it may suck to some degree. I'm not saying it wouldn't, but it will be easier for children to simply learn that family trade. Same thing with drywall or whatever else, or carpentry, with all the other different trades. Or maybe your dad is an accountant and you learn to be an accountant too, and you go to yeshiva. Wink, wink. No, but seriously, I went on a long rant, but basically, Vaush is trying to fight to keep this system alive so that they can have their video games, so that they can have so America can hold their dominance a little bit longer, so that they could live their privileged lives. And the thing is, you can't fight that sort of thing. It's like trying to fight getting older. No, you can't. You're just going to get old. I've tried to face that fact. But it's like, I know, I'm an old man. There's not a whole lot I want to mess with. There's not a whole lot of people I want to get to know. It's like, I've just started this new job, but I really don't want to get to know this guy I'm working with. It's like, yeah, he seems like a decent enough guy. But as soon as I learn enough from him and I'm able to do, fix stuff and do make readies in these apartments, man, I don't care what he does. It's none of my damn business at this point. I'm going to do my own thing. Is that, that's what happens when you get old. You're just like, man, I know how to do this specific thing. That's another thing too, is that, they don't understand how people work. It takes a long time to train plumbers. It takes a long time to train refrigeration guys, or whichever trade. Like I say, I'm focused on stuff that I'm, that I've done or that I've seen, but that's the truth of the matter. It takes a long time to create good technicians, electricians, et cetera, et cetera. And the thing is that there just isn't that sort of, there's no training. that exist like that. Not the same way. You know, even in the German Democratic Republic, they had better training than that. But I think that going back to sort of the learning from your dad would be a start in the right direction. And getting away from video games and whatnot. Ultimately, you know what? I'm going to tell you something that's more in my personal life. But the thing is, I can't watch on my laptop past 9 o'clock because ultimately I'll kind of half sleep is what I'll call it. And ultimately my brain, it's like I can still hear. I'm still dreaming, but I can't actually go to sleep. So I kind of get a half sleep. And so I'm just basically a zombie the rest of the day, you know. So I have to just turn it off, you know, about 8 or 9 o'clock, which I'm getting close to that, but shut it off and read. In this case, I'm reading Dark Age America. I'll still promote the book. Read that for a bit, for maybe about an hour or two. Try to meditate a little bit and then go to sleep. I'm still trying to fight in certain ways, like fight against it and say, I'm still a young kid. I'm still, I can still eat junk food and this. No, but I look at my waistline and I know I can't do that. And Vaush and these other folks, they can't fight the destiny that's coming. They can't fight the fact that this is going to end. This whole sort of infrastructure that's been created, you know, with malls, with the whole consumer's culture. That's going to go away because the infrastructure and the huge amount of energy it takes to keep that system going is going to crumble. That infrastructure is going to disappear. It's going to take time. It's going to take 20, 30, 40 years, but yes, it will disappear. We see it already. Walmart, this juggernaut, which destroyed plenty of businesses, destroyed plenty of local businesses and, you know, local chains and whatnot, destroyed plenty of them. Dying a death. It's dying a slow death, but it is dying. All the corporate leadership is gone. All the corporate leadership is being kicked out. And so that means, as much as, you know, the reality is that, yeah, Walmart stores are going to look worse and worse, and they're going to end up just the same as the others, because ultimately that's how capitalism works. That's how these businesses work. That's why I try not to get too attached to businesses, you know, where, you know, you get hooked on a brand, right? Oh, I like Kmart or something like that. Who gives a fuck? It'll disappear. Who cares about Netflix as well? Netflix is slowly dying. As much as it destroyed Blockbuster, it's slowly disappearing as well. And maybe some of this is influenced by Dark Age America and my reading of John Michael Greer, but I do think that, you know, we see a return to not even tradition, a return to just the way things were. Not necessarily, and like I said, that's not necessarily tradition. It's returning to a system that is more practical and realistic. This whole we're going to have it by tomorrow sort of stuff, that's no. You're going to have it in a week. You know, it's one of those sorts of things. You know, you're going to go back to the days of the blacksmith. It's like, how long will it be till I get my my wheels for my wagon? It'll take about a week, or it'll take about a month. And people just accepted that. We've been spoiled by this system. And I think that, you know, as things go along, it's not going to start immediately, but in our lifetimes, it will slowly start to fall off. What I've noticed a lot with John Michael Greer's interpretation is this: is that it's a set of stairs, and that, you know, you're going to have a fall, we're going to have a lull, and then another fall, lull, etc., you know, just like a set of stairs. And that's absolutely what's going to occur. It's just one thing after another. It's just like, we're going to live without it. Okay, we're not going to do that anymore. And that's what's going to happen. You're just going to do without. It's not going to come back. So while these folks can promote this sort of system that, oh, well, drones and, oh, automation and all this and that, maybe to some degree that will occur. But for the most of us, that's not, you know, for the rest of us, that's not going to happen. The rest of us are going to go back to a peasant lifestyle. They're going to go back to an artisan sort of lifestyle to a point. You know, you're not going to have the luxuries that we do today. Even air conditioning, as my little window unit is humming in the background there. These things will go away. And while they can try to hold on, and they can pretend that their anime will still be there, that their video games will still be there, it's going to go away. It will disappear. It'll just happen. That's how I feel about it. I'm no longer the sort of balkanization sort of guy and just immediate civil war. No, I just think that ultimately people will just live without. And they'll be upset and angry about it, but ultimately, what are they going to do? For the most part, some people will riot and act a fool, but those folks will probably be killed. They'll probably be arrested, disappear, whatever. And the rest of us will just say, I don't want to end up like them. And you live without. You live without. Anyway, I spent most of the time just talking about my own LARPy ideas and whatnot, kind of heavily influenced by what John Michael Greer has written in his books. And I think that's all I have, guys. I hope y'all enjoyed that. Hopefully this audio isn't complete crap, but we'll see. Anyways, see you later. Goodbye.